Asterisk from the outside, their house looked ordinary: white walls, an old wooden gate, flower pots that had been neglected for weeks. But inside, it held a silence so loud that even a whisper felt like a scream. A silence that had grown between two people who once couldn't go a day without speaking to each other. Meher sat at the dining table, staring at the worn-out envelope she had pulled out from the back of her wardrobe drawer. It was slightly yellowed, still sealed, with her husband's name written in her handwriting. The letter she had written years ago but never sent. She held it like it was a heartbeat she didn't want to stop. Asterisk. She looked across the table. Armand sat there, hunched over his tea, eyes focused on nothing in particular. They hadn't spoken more than a few polite words in weeks. The distance between them had grown like rust on iron, slowly, invisibly, until it was everywhere. He used to bring her flowers every Friday, even when they were broke. She used to wait for his texts with a smile that even she didn't recognize anymore. But now, they were more like strangers wearing the same last name. Asterisk. The letter had been written during a time when Meher was drowning in grief, in loneliness, in fear. 3 years ago, when she had lost their baby, when everything shattered, and she felt like she had shattered with it. She had written that letter the night she sat alone in the hospital room while Armand stayed back home, unable to face the pain. She never gave it to him. She wasn't sure why, maybe because she thought things would heal on their own. Maybe because she hoped he'd notice without needing to be told. Asterisk. But he never did. Asterisk. He had his own way of grieving, silent, withdrawn. He buried himself in work, stayed out late, and when he came home, he barely looked her in the eyes. She thought he was moving on. He thought she needed space. And in the middle of that unspoken misunderstanding, they lost each other too. Asterisk. She traced the edge of the envelope, her fingers trembling. She was tired of pretending she didn't care, tired of waiting for him to remember what they used to be, tired of going to sleep every night on opposite sides of the bed, their backs turned like cold mountains. Asterisk. But she wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. Asterisk. She stood, walked over to where he was sitting, and placed the letter in front of him. I wrote this a long time ago, she said quietly. I never sent it. Maybe I should have. Asterisk. He looked up, surprised, his eyes meeting hers for the first time in days. She turned and walked away, leaving him alone with the letter. He hesitated for a long moment before opening it. Asterisk. Her handwriting was familiar, but the words felt like discovering a stranger's heart. Armand, I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe I'll never be brave enough to give it to you. But I need to write this, even if it's only for me. Asterisk. Tonight, I held our baby one last time. I kissed his tiny fingers and whispered goodbye. And you weren't there. You said you couldn't handle seeing him like that. And I tried to understand. I told myself that everyone grieves differently. But the truth is, I needed you. Asterisk. Not the strong version of you, not the problem solver. Just you. Asterisk. I needed your arms around me while my world fell apart. I needed your voice to remind me that we would survive this. Asterisk. But you left me alone. In that hospital room, I didn't just lose our son. I started losing you too. Asterisk. I've cried into my pillow for nights. I've smiled when I didn't feel like smiling. I've cooked your meals and washed your clothes while carrying a heart full of cracks. Asterisk. And you never asked me how I was. Asterisk. Maybe I've become a stranger to you. Maybe I'm not the same woman who laughed at your stupid jokes and danced in the kitchen at midnight. Maybe she died the day we lost our baby. Asterisk. But I'm still here. Armand, I'm still trying. Asterisk. All I want is for you to look at me and see me. Really see me. Asterisk. Because I don't know how much longer I can live with a man who feels like a ghost. Asterisk. Meher. Asterisk. Asterisk. When he finished reading, he sat motionless. His fingers pressed against the paper, his jaw clenched. And then he broke. Asterisk. Armand had always been the one who never cried. He thought he had to be strong for her, that if he fell apart, she would too. But now, sitting at the same table where they once planned baby names and laughed over spilled tea, he wept. He realized he hadn't just failed to be there for her, he had locked her out of his pain too. Asterisk. That night he walked into their room slowly, where she was sitting on the bed, back turned, He knelt beside her. I read it. He said, his voice rough. She didn't turn around. I should have been there. I should have held your hand. I thought being strong meant staying away, hiding how broken I was, but I broke you too. I'm so sorry, asterisk. She looked at him, then really looked. For the first time in years, his eyes were full of the man she had fallen in love with, asterisk. They didn't have to say much after that. Words weren't enough anyway. But for the first time in a long time, they slept holding each other. No pretense. Just pain and love, tangled in the same breath. Asterisk, over the next few weeks, they started talking again. Not just small talk or polite questions, but real conversations. They went for long walks. They visited the little grave of their son together. They cried, they laughed. They remembered, and slowly they began to heal. Meher started painting again. Arman began writing poetry. They found pieces of themselves in the things they used to love before life grew heavy. They didn't try to go back to who they were before. That version of them was gone. But they created something new, something deeper. Asterisk. One day, Meher found another envelope on the table. It was addressed to her. She opened it and found a letter from Arman. Meher, I read the letter you never sent. Now it's my turn. Asterisk. I couldn't face our baby because I blamed myself. I thought if I had been a better husband, a better man, maybe the universe wouldn't have taken him. Asterisk. Every night I stayed away, I was afraid. Afraid of your pain, afraid of mine. I thought by not talking about it, we could move on, but all we did was bury our love under silence. I don't want to live in that silence anymore. Asterisk. Let's speak. Let's fight, cry, scream if we have to. But let's not be strangers in the same home. Asterisk. You are the strongest woman I know. And I'm sorry it took me so long to come back to you. Asterisk. This time I'm staying. Asterisk. Yours always. Asterisk. Arman. Asterisk. Asterisk. Years later, when their hair turned gray and their steps slowed, they would sit on the same porch and tell younger couples that love is not just about the good days. It's not about Instagram-worthy dates or picture-perfect smiles. Asterisk. It's about staying. Through grief, through silence, through heartbreak. It's about letters written in pain and read in forgiveness. It's about not giving up even when everything tells you to walk away. Because sometimes the letter you never send becomes the one that saves everything.